Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're exploring a connection.
Oh, a fascinating one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Between astrology and global events. We're going to be looking at a YouTube video by astrologer Pam Gregory,
Okay.
and she analyzes the first half of January 2025.
All right.
And get this, she suggests that we might see some pretty significant changes, like shifts on the world stage mirrored by what's happening in the cosmos.
Interesting.
Yeah. So are we about to see some major changes?
Well, the first half of January 2025 is astrologically potent for sure.
Okay.
Right off the bat, we've got this Mars-Pluto opposition
Okay.
that actually starts in November 2024 and lasts all the way to May 2025.
Wow.
It's not just a one-time thing either. There are 3 major hits where this energy peaks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And these were around November 3rd, January 3rd, and will be again on April 24th.
So 3 distinct periods where we might see this Mars-Pluto energy play out.
Exactly. And to understand what that might look like, we need to consider what Mars and Pluto represent astrologically.
All right.
Mars is all about drive, action, assertion, even aggression.
Okay.
Pluto, on the other hand, symbolizes power, transformation, and in some cases, destruction.
Oh.
When they're in opposition, it creates this intense friction, a clash of wills.
Okay, so if we zoom out from the personal level and look at the world stage, what might this Mars-Pluto opposition translate to?
Well, it's tempting to jump to doom and gloom predictions,
Right.
But it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Historically, similar Mars-Pluto transits have coincided with periods of intense power struggles and shifts in the balance of power.
Like when?
Think back to the early 1940s during World War II.
Oh, wow.
That was another time when Mars and Pluto were in a tense aspect.
Okay, so are we talking potential conflicts between nations, political upheaval?
Those are certainly possibilities.
Okay.
It's not necessarily about full-blown war, but we could see heightened political polarization, social unrest, and a struggle for dominance on the global stage.
Yeah, I mean, think about what was happening in the U.S. around the November 2024 elections.
Exactly.
That intense division and tension, that's a classic example of Mars-Pluto energy playing out.
Textbook.
But Pam Gregory also suggests this opposition could push us toward a greater unity consciousness,
Yeah.
right? How does that
Right.
fit in with all this potential for conflict?
That's the fascinating paradox of these intense astrological aspects. They can lead to breakdown or breakthrough. The Mars-Pluto opposition is like holding a mirror up to humanity,
Okay.
forcing us to confront the consequences of our I'm right, you're wrong mentality.
Yeah.
It's through experiencing the limitations of that approach that we might collectively start to see the need for a more collaborative, understanding way of relating to each other.
So it's like a cosmic wake-up call.
Yeah.
Shake things up to pave the way for something new.
Precisely.
I like that.
And this brings us back to the importance of personal awareness. How do you react under pressure?
Yeah.
Do you get caught up in the drama? Or do you take a step back, breathe, and choose a more conscious response? Because ultimately, the way we navigate these collective challenges starts with how we manage our own internal world.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this intense Mars-Pluto energy in the background.
Yeah.
And then layered on top of that, Mars goes retrograde in Cancer until February 24th, 2025. So for anyone who's not deep into astrology,
Yeah.
can you explain what a retrograde means and why it matters?
Sure. When a planet is retrograde, from our perspective on Earth, it appears to be moving backward in the sky.
Okay.
Astrologically, this signifies a period of inward reflection and reevaluation related to the themes of that planet. Mars is all about action. So when it goes retrograde, it can feel like we're hitting a wall,
Okay.
things are slowing down, or we're facing obstacles.
But Mars isn't just retrograde, it's also out of bounds.
Oh, that's right.
Right. What does that mean? Is that like astrological code for things getting really weird?
Yeah. It is a bit like Mars is going off-road, breaking the usual rules.
Okay.
Out of bounds technically means it's outside a certain declination range relative to the celestial equator. In simpler terms, it's like Mars is operating with more freedom, and that can lead to unpredictable,
Okay.
even erratic energy.
So we've got Mars retrograde Andy out of bounds in Cancer.
Yes.
What kind of a cocktail is that creating, astrologically speaking? How might that be playing out in our lives?
This combination creates a real push-pull dynamic.
Okay.
On one hand, you might feel this urge to charge ahead, take action, assert yourself. That's the Mars instinct.
Yeah.
But the retrograde, combined with being out of bounds in Cancer,
Mm-hmm.
a sign associated with emotion and security,
Okay.
might make you feel more hesitant, introspective, even a bit frustrated.
Oh, I see.
It's like wanting to move forward but feeling held back at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how that would create a lot of internal tension.
Right.
Is there a way to work with this energy instead of against it?
Absolutely. This is a great time to reflect on how you've been using your energy,
Okay.
particularly in relation to assertion and anger.
Mm.
Are you channeling those feelings in a healthy, productive way?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you bottling them up or directing them outward in a way that's not serving you?
So this isn't just about sitting back and waiting for the retrograde to pass.
Right.
It's about using this time to become more aware of our own patterns and make adjustments.
Exactly, because that awareness, that willingness to look inward, is what ultimately allows us to break free from those old patterns and move forward in a more conscious, empowered way,
Okay.
even if it feels slow going right now.
Yeah,
This Mars retrograde period can ultimately lead to breakthroughs.
I like that. There's always a silver lining.
There is.
Okay, so we've got this background hum of Mars-Pluto.
Yes.
And then this Mars retrograde period adding another layer of complexity. And then boom, we've got a full moon in Cancer on January 13th, 2025.
Yes.
What's the astrological significance of a full moon? And how does this one tie into everything else we've been talking about?
In astrology, full moons are generally seen as points of culmination, illumination, and release.
Okay.
It's like things are reaching a peak, coming to a head.
Okay.
This particular full moon in Cancer is significant for a few reasons.
Okay.
First, it's happening very close to the degree of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that occurred in January 2020.
Which, for those who don't recall, coincided with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
So we're dealing with an echo of that energy.
Yes.
But this time it's happening in Cancer.
Yes.
Okay.
And Cancer is the sign associated with emotional security, home, family, the past.
Right.
So we might see themes related to those areas coming up for collective reflection.
Interesting.
Think about it. How has our sense of security, our relationship to home and family, been impacted by the events of the past few years?
That's a big question.
It is.
And then there's the fact that Pluto is currently transiting through Aquarius, which is all about freedom, human rights, challenging the status quo.
Yes.
How does that play into this full moon in Cancer?
It creates a dynamic tension.
Okay.
On one hand, you have Cancer wanting to cling to the familiar, to what feels safe and secure.
Right.
On the other hand, you have Pluto in Aquarius pushing for liberation, for the dismantling of outdated structures and systems that are no longer serving humanity.
So this full moon could highlight those points of friction, those places where we're being asked to let go of the old to make way for the new.
That's a great way to put it. We might see this play out on a personal level as well as on the world stage.
Okay.
Are there areas in your life where you're clinging to something that's no longer serving you? Is there a need for greater emotional honesty?
Yeah.
A willingness to face what's been hidden or suppressed? These are questions that might come up around this full moon.
And this brings us to something that totally blew my mind when I first heard about it.
What's that?
Astrocartography.
Oh.
It sounds super complex, but can you give us the explain it like I'm five version?
Essentially, astrocartography is a way of mapping planetary positions onto geographical locations. It suggests that certain areas of the world might be more strongly influenced by particular astrological events. Think of it like this. Imagine casting a horoscope for the entire Earth.
Okay.
Just like your natal chart has specific points that are significant, the Earth's chart has sensitive points as well.
And what does the astrocartography for this full moon reveal? What areas are being lit up, so to speak?
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The astrocartography for this full moon highlights some pretty intriguing locations.
Like what?
For example, Washington, D.C. is right in the thick of it.
Oh, okay.
The full moon chart suggests a high probability of major events happening there,
Interesting.
potentially related to government shifts or power struggles.
So keep an eye on U.S. politics, everybody.
Oh, okay.
Okay, got it.
But it's not just the U.S. South America, specifically Venezuela and Brazil, are also highlighted, with the potential for governmental or land-related events.
Okay, so two very different areas of the world.
Yes.
Wow.
And places like Indonesia, Eastern Africa, Central Australia, and Tokyo are also in the mix,
Okay.
with a possibility for sudden, even radical changes.
It's like these locations are energetic hotspots.
Yes.
Primed for transformation or upheaval.
It's important to remember that this doesn't mean something will definitely happen in these places,
Right.
but it does suggest a heightened potential for significant events.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll delve deeper into some of the specific countries being activated by this full moon and explore what this all might mean for us on a personal level.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about some of the global hotspots
Right.
highlighted by the astrocartography for this full moon. It's fascinating to consider
It is.
how those planetary influences might manifest differently. Right.
In different parts of the world.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, are there certain countries whose destinies are somehow intertwined based on their astrological charts?
That's a question astrologers have pondered for centuries.
I bet.
And this full moon is actually activating the charts
Okay.
of quite a few countries.
Yeah, right.
We mentioned the U.S., Venezuela, and Brazil.
Right.
Pam Gregory also points to China,
Okay.
New Zealand, Israel, Iraq,
Wow.
France, Germany,
This a lot.
Ethiopia, and Australia as being particularly sensitive to these energies.
Wow, that's quite a list. Is there a common thread running through these countries?
Yeah.
Astrologically speaking?
It seems the overarching theme is a potential for political or social upheaval, a shaking up of the status quo.
Okay.
But of course, how that manifests will vary depending on each country's unique astrological blueprint
Right.
and current circumstances.
So let's dive into a few of these,
Okay.
shall we? China always seems to be at the forefront of global conversations.
It does.
What does the full moon chart reveal about what might be happening there?
Well, during this full moon, China's moon, which in a national chart often represents the people,
Okay.
is being directly opposed by Pluto.
Mm.
That suggests a potential for social unrest or a push for greater freedom and autonomy among the Chinese people.
Interesting. I guess when you consider the astrological symbolism,
Yeah.
it makes sense. Pluto is all about transformation,
Yes.
power dynamics, and breaking down old structures.
Oh.
And the moon represents the collective emotional needs and desires of a nation.
Right.
So maybe we're seeing a clash between those who want to maintain control and those who are yearning for change.
It's certainly a possibility.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see how this energy plays out in the coming months.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about New Zealand?
Okay.
What's brewing down under?
New Zealand's astrocartography for this full moon is intriguing.
Okay.
It's midheaven, which often signifies the government or leadership of a country.
Is being conjunct by the full moon itself. At the same time, its sun, which can represent the leader, is being opposed by the full moon.
So that sounds like a recipe for tension or challenges for the New Zealand government.
It could be.
Maybe a loss of public confidence or some sort of scandal?
Those are certainly possibilities.
Yeah.
Or it could manifest as a conflict between different branches of government.
Okay.
Or a clash between the leader and the people.
Got it.
Again, it's about looking for those themes of power dynamics and potential upheaval.
Let's pick one more country.
Okay.
What about Israel?
All right.
It always seems to be a hotbed of geopolitical activity.
It is.
What's the astrological forecast suggesting?
Israel's midheaven is also being conjunct by this full moon. And to add another layer of intrigue,
Oh, boy.
Uranus is transiting its sun.
Okay.
Uranus is the planet of sudden change, disruption, and innovation.
Ooh. So that sounds like there could be some unexpected events.
It does.
Or changes in leadership on the horizon for Israel.
Possibly.
Maybe a sudden election or a political shakeup?
It's definitely a possibility.
Okay.
Uranus transits tend to bring things to the surface
Yeah.
very quickly and unexpectedly.
So yeah, keep an eye out. So it'll be interesting to see how this energy plays out in Israel's already volatile political landscape.
Right.
Wow. Okay, so we've got potential social unrest in China, challenges for the New Zealand government,
Yeah.
and possible leadership changes in Israel,
Right.
all triggered by this one full moon.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really makes you realize how interconnected the world is,
It does.
and how these seemingly distant events might be linked on a deeper energetic level.
Yeah.
But what about closer to home? We talk about how this full moon is happening in Cancer,
Right.
a sign of home and family.
Yeah.
How might this be playing out on a personal level, besides just making us all extra moody and craving comfort food?
Of course. Well, Cancer is also associated with our emotional foundations, our sense of belonging, our roots. So this full moon might bring up themes related to those areas.
Interesting.
It's a time to reflect on our relationship with our family, our home, our past. What are the emotional patterns we've inherited?
Okay.
What are the stories we tell ourselves about where we come from and where we belong?
It sounds like a time for some deep introspection,
It is.
maybe even some ancestral healing work.
That's certainly a possibility.
Okay.
This full moon might bring up old wounds related to our family history,
Right.
but it also presents an opportunity to heal those wounds, to rewrite those stories,
Yeah.
to create a stronger, more supportive emotional foundation for ourselves.
I like that, turning the potential for upheaval into an opportunity for growth.
Exactly.
Because let's be honest, family dynamics can be complicated.
They certainly can.
Right.
And this full moon might highlight those complexities,
Okay.
bringing things to the surface that need to be addressed. It might be a time of difficult conversations, of setting boundaries, of letting go of old patterns that are no longer serving us.
Okay, so this full moon in Cancer is prompting us to look at our emotional foundations,
Yes.
our sense of belonging, and our family dynamics.
Yeah.
And then we have this Mars retrograde in Cancer, also stirring the pot.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like a recipe for some intense emotional processing.
It can be.
Any advice on how to navigate this energy in a healthy way?
Yeah.
Besides hiding under the covers with a pint of ice cream, I mean...
That's always an option. But seriously, this is a time to be gentle with ourselves.
Okay.
To acknowledge any difficult emotions that come up without judgment. Remember, Cancer is a water sign, so it's all about feeling our feelings, allowing them to flow through us.
Right.
This isn't a time to suppress or deny our emotions.
So it's like we're being given permission to feel all the feels.
Exactly, but it's also about finding healthy ways to express those emotions.
Okay.
Journaling, talking to a therapist, spending time in nature, creative expression. These can all be helpful outlets.
Okay, so we're feeling our feelings,
Yes.
expressing them in a healthy way,
Uh-huh.
and hopefully healing some old wounds in the process.
Right.
But Pam Gregory also talks about this full moon as a potential catalyst
Yes.
for shifting to a higher dimension.
Yeah.
I have to admit that part kind of went over my head.
Okay.
Could you break that down for us?
It's a complex concept for sure.
Right.
And it's definitely one that invites skepticism from some.
Yeah.
But the basic idea is that our consciousness plays a much bigger role in shaping reality
Okay.
than we realize. It's not just about visualizing what we want.
Yeah.
It's about embodying the qualities of the reality we want to create.
So if we want to experience a world of peace,
Yes,
we need to cultivate peace within ourselves.
precisely.
If we want a world of abundance,
Yes,
we need to embody a mindset of abundance.
exactly. It's about walking the talk, so to speak.
Yeah.
Our actions have to be congruent with our desires.
It sounds like a pretty tall order,
It can be.
especially when the world can feel so chaotic and unpredictable.
Right.
How do we stay positive and focused when surrounded by so much negativity?
Pam Gregory actually shares a really powerful example from her own life.
Oh.
She talks about how she used to get really anxious about world events, feeling powerless to make a difference.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
I think so, too.
It's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom,
It is.
especially with the 24/7 news cycle constantly bombarding us with negativity.
Right, and Pam realized that her anxiety was actually contributing to the problem. It was lowering her vibration and feeding into the collective fear.
So instead of being part of the solution, she was inadvertently adding to the problem.
Exactly, so she made a conscious decision to shift her focus.
Okay.
Instead of dwelling on the negativity,
Yeah.
she started focusing on solutions, on the positive changes that were already happening in the world.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
It's like choosing to tune into a different channel. We have the power to decide what we focus our attention on.
We do, and Pam also started practicing gratitude,
Okay.
appreciating the good things in her life,
Uh-huh.
even the small things.
Right.
She found that as she raised her own vibration, she felt more empowered, more hopeful, and more connected to her purpose.
So it's about finding those little sparks of joy
Yes.
in our everyday lives. Those things that remind us that even amidst the darkness, there's still beauty and goodness to be found.
Absolutely. And the more we focus on those things,
Right.
the more we attract them into our experience.
It's like we're creating a positive feedback loop.
Yes.
We raise our vibration,
Yeah.
we attract more positivity,
Yeah.
which in turn raises our vibration even more.
Precisely. And as we do that, we become beacons of light, radiating that positivity out into the world.
And this is something we can all do.
It is.
We each have the power to be a force for good,
Yes.
to contribute to the collective awakening.
It's not about grand gestures or saving the world single-handedly. It starts with taking responsibility for our own energy.
Yeah.
for our own thoughts and emotions,
Right.
and then making conscious choices that align with the world we want to create.
So small steps, taken consistently, can lead to big changes.
They can.
I like that. It feels empowering.
It is.
Knowing that we're not just at the mercy of fate, that we have agency in creating our reality.
We do.
But what about those times when we feel overwhelmed, discouraged, or just plain exhausted by the state of the world?
Yeah.
What do we do then?
Those feelings are completely understandable.
Right.
It's important to acknowledge them
Okay.
and allow ourselves to feel them without judgment. Sometimes we need to rest,
Yeah.
recharge, and reconnect with our own inner source of strength and wisdom
Okay.
before we can effectively contribute to the collective good.
So take a break
Yes.
when you need it.
It's like that saying about putting on your own oxygen mask
Oh, yeah.
before assisting others.
Right.
We can't pour from an empty cup.
That's such a great analogy. And it's a good reminder that self-care isn't selfish.
It's not.
It's essential.
It is.
We can't show up as our best selves if we're running on fumes.
Exactly. So give yourself permission to rest, to recharge, to do whatever you need to do to nourish your mind, body, and spirit.
Good.
And trust that even in those moments of stillness, you're still contributing to the collective good. Your presence matters.
Yeah.
Your energy matters. And your intention matters.
Wow. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
So as we navigate this intense astrological landscape,
Yeah.
let's remember that we are not just passive observers.
Right.
We are active participants in the unfolding of reality.
Yes.
Let's choose love over fear, hope over despair,
Yeah.
and action over apathy.
Absolutely.
Let's be the change we want to see in the world.
Yes.
And let's trust that together we can create a future filled with peace, harmony, and abundance for all.
That's a vision worth striving for.
Absolutely. So there you have it, our deep dive into astrology and global events for the first half of January 2025. It's a time of intense energy, potential upheaval, and incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
A time for each of us to step up, to claim our power, and to be the change makers we were born to be.
So what are your biggest takeaways from this deep dive?
So much to choose from.
I know, right?
I think what really struck me is this idea that the external world is a reflection of our collective consciousness.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not just passive observers,
Right.
but active participants in the unfolding of reality.
We are.
And that by choosing love, compassion, and conscious action,
Yeah.
we can contribute to the creation of a more beautiful world.
I love that. And I think it's a message that's particularly relevant given the astrological landscape we're navigating right now.
Right.
With all the intensity and potential for upheaval,
Yeah.
it's easy to feel overwhelmed or disempowered. But this full moon is also a potent reminder that we have the power to choose how we respond,
Right.
how we show up, and what kind of world we want to create.
Exactly. It's about remembering that we are not alone, that we're all in this together.
We are.
And that even amidst the challenges,
Yeah.
there's always hope, there's always possibility, and there's always the potential for something beautiful to emerge.
So well said. I couldn't agree more.
It's amazing to think about the potential for change, especially during times like these, when there's so much astrological intensity swirling around.
For sure.
But I'm curious how this concept of collective consciousness plays out in our individual lives. Is there a way to sort of tap into that energy and use it to manifest our own desires?
That's where it gets really interesting. It's almost like we're being given a cosmic crash course in manifestation, but on a global scale.
Okay, so not just manifesting a parking space or winning the lottery,
Yeah.
but actually contributing to a larger shift in the collective reality.
Exactly.
But how do we do that? Where do we even begin?
It starts with aligning our thoughts, feelings, and actions with the reality we want to create.
Oh.
It's not just about visualizing a better world. It's about embodying the qualities we want to see manifested.
So if we want to create a world of peace, we need to cultivate peace within ourselves.
Yes.
If we want a world of abundance,
Uh-huh.
we need to embody a mindset of abundance.
Exactly. It's about walking the talk, so to speak.
Right.
Our actions have to be congruent with our desires.
It sounds like a pretty tall order, especially when the world can feel so chaotic and unpredictable.
It can be.
How do we stay positive and focused
Yeah.
when surrounded by so much negativity?
Pam Gregory actually shares a really powerful example from her own life.
Okay.
She talks about how she used to get really anxious about world events, feeling powerless to make a difference.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Sure.
It's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom.
Yeah.
especially with the 24/7 news cycle constantly bombarding us with negativity.
It is, and Pam realized that her anxiety was actually contributing to the problem. It was lowering her vibration and feeding into the collective fear.
So instead of being part of the solution, she was inadvertently adding to the problem.
Exactly. So she made a conscious decision to shift her focus.
Yeah.
Instead of dwelling on the negativity, she started focusing on solutions,
Okay.
on the positive changes that were already happening in the world.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like choosing to tune into a different channel.
It is.
We have the power to decide what we focus our attention on.
We do, and Pam also started practicing gratitude,
Okay.
appreciating the good things in her life,
Right.
even the small things.
Yeah, I like that.
She found that as she raised her own vibration, she felt more empowered, more hopeful, and more connected to her purpose.
So it's about finding those little sparks of joy in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
Those things that remind us that even amidst the darkness, there's still beauty and goodness to be found.
Absolutely, and the more we focus on those things, the more we attract them into our experience.
Right. It's like we're creating a positive feedback loop.
Yes.
We raise our vibration, we attract more positivity, which in turn raises our vibration even more.
Exactly, and as we do that, we become beacons of light, radiating that positivity out into the world.
Wow, so we can all be like little lighthouses,
We can
beaming out good vibes.
Yes.
I love that. And this is something we can all do. We each have the power to be a force for good, to contribute to the collective awakening.
Absolutely, and it's not about grand gestures or saving the world single-handedly.
Right.
It starts with taking responsibility for our own energy, for our own thoughts and emotions,
Right.
and then making conscious choices that align with the world we want to create.
So small steps taken consistently can lead to big changes.
They can.
I like that. It feels empowering, knowing that we're not just at the mercy of fate,
Right.
that we have agency in creating a reality. But what about those times when we feel overwhelmed, discouraged, or just plain exhausted by the state of the world? What do we do then?
Well, those feelings are completely understandable.
Right.
And it's important to acknowledge them and allow ourselves to feel them without judgment.
Well,
Sometimes we need to rest, recharge, and reconnect with our own inner source of strength and wisdom
right.
before we can effectively contribute to the collective good.
Okay.
It's like that saying about putting on your own oxygen mask before assisting others.
Right, right.
We can't pour from an empty cup.
That's such a great analogy. And it's a good reminder that self-care isn't selfish.
It's not.
It's essential.
It is.
We can't show up as our best selves if we're running on fumes.
Right. So give yourself permission to rest, to recharge, to do whatever you need to do to nourish your mind, body, and spirit.
Okay, I like that.
And trust that even in those moments of stillness,
Yeah.
you're still contributing to the collective good. Your presence matters, your energy matters, and your intention matters.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
So as we navigate this intense astrological landscape,
Yeah.
let's remember that we are not just passive observers. We are active participants in the unfolding of reality.
We are.
Let's choose love over fear, hope over despair, and action over apathy.
Yeah.
Let's be the change we want to see in the world, and let's trust that together we can create a future filled with peace, harmony, and abundance for all.
That's a vision worth striving for.
Absolutely. So there you have it, our deep dive into astrology and global events for the first half of January 2025. It's a time of intense energy, potential upheaval, and incredible opportunity. A time for each of us to step up, to claim our power, and to be the change makers we were born to be.
What are your biggest takeaways from this deep dive? What resonated most with you? And most importantly, how will you use this information to navigate your own life and contribute to the creation of a better world?
That's a great question to ponder and a great place for us to wrap up this deep dive, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay empowered.